Well, 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 look at us. We are back in the studio. That's right, Garden America. We are back. John Bagnasco, I'm Brian Main. Special guest today, which we'll talk about in just a very few minutes. Somebody we haven't seen in quite a long time, haven't talked to in some time.
A month, right?
It's been a month, yeah. And that's going to be exciting. Should we let them know who it is, John?
Go ahead.
All right. Tiger Palafox is back with us today. How about that? Tiger back in studio. Man, those cards and letters, the emails, the blogs. Where's Tiger been? What's going on? What happened?
Was it all over the front pages?
Oh, it was everywhere.
Where's Tiger?
Everywhere. Yeah, there was chants. We want Tiger. We want Tiger. And then I got into that whole Charlie Sheen Tiger blood thing.
Yeah,
and I wasn't sure the connection.
Yeah.
Do they ever hold the presses anymore?
They just hold the email.
They don't.
They just hold the email.
Hold the presses. Stop.
Right.
When they're rolling around real quick.
Yeah, Tiger was just asking if it was all over the front pages, and I'm just thinking.
It would have been. So we're back. The boys are back in town.
Yes.
Brownsville Station. That's the group, Tiger.
Thank you.
And you know the song, don't you?
I do know the song.
See?
Yeah. It comes around all the time during baseball season.
The time.
Was that what they alluded to in the song? Was baseball? Or is it just somehow connected with baseball?
It's baseball likes to grab onto songs.
Right.
Like we were talking about Sweet Caroline this morning.
Yeah.
The Boston Red Sox, seventh inning.
They're all about that,
They
right?
play Sweet Caroline.
But that's not about baseball.
I don't know. I mean, boys are back in town. You can apply that to anything.
Right. I just didn't know if they just were like, oh, because they usually play that in allude to like baseball's back in season, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, the boys are back in town.
Right.
So, hey, we should tell people, no guest today.
No, and you know what?
It's just
No
us.
props.
Yeah.
We're the gourds.
I had a busy week.
That's
Brian,
you know
I had
what?
a busy week.
Brian was right.
Yeah. Yeah, I lost
He's
my
out
gourd.
he's out of his gourd.
You're
Out
out
of
of your
my
gourd. So briefly, just quickly, tell John what you did last night and what's going on this weekend.
So we had my sister-in-law's wedding at our house yesterday.
Your sister-in-law's wedding.
Yes. So my wife's sister, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, your
Okay.
wife's sister.
My wife's sister
married.
got married, and we had her wedding at our house yesterday.
And you used all the gourds to decorate?
No, we didn't have any gourds for decoration.
Oh.
And I had to officiate the wedding, which I was honored and enjoyed doing that.
He got his degree online for that. Is that a degree where you can marry somebody?
A degree?
And then
I don't think it's a degree.
I
think you get a license for it.
I said, did you get that just for this wedding? And Tiger says, no, I've had it for a long time.
Yeah. This is. I think this is my 6th wedding I've actually performed.
Wow.
But
now, of those 6 weddings, is everyone still married?
let's not talk about that.
Okay.
I don't want to jinx anything.
I asked him to perform at my wedding, but he wasn't born. And
Well, you asked
couldn't
me
do it.
You asked me to perform at some event you had. You wanted me to juggle. And I said, I don't know how to juggle. What do you mean perform? Where did performing come in?
What am I, a jester?
So anyway, you had a huge wedding at your
So we had a
house.
huge wedding at our house last night. Okay, so that was last night. And then today is my daughter's 13th birthday party.
Wow.
So right after this, I got to get home, get ready for that 13th birthday party. And then tomorrow is a fundraiser for my kids' school. It's actually happening all weekend, but I've got to be there at the fall festival.
You have a full life.
Well, he's in that kid zone
exhausting,
right
yes.
now. You know, and I guarantee it's always sad when they grow up and they move out, empty nesters, but then there's a big sigh of relief.
I was going to say, I feel like I'll just be,
But you know what's
so
really
happy.
sad is a teenage daughter.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a lot different.
You know, I've seen this change in her. Like, it's her birthday this week, and I've seen this change in her of a little bit more maturity, a little bit more like just
More refined.
yes. And I'm like, I kind of like this. Hopefully, it sticks around.
Well, there's still some work to be done.
There's ups and downs.
Yeah, there's still work to be done. Now, is your as she gets older,
Yeah.
as she matures now, is your wife kind of taking over some of the woman things here?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, definitely. My
Dad
wife
steps
is
away a little bit.
Yeah, I'm there just for the fun stuff with
Right,
her right now.
right.
Yeah, but it's 13 years old. 13. It's crazy.
What are you laughing?
What are you laughing?
I'm laughing at Carla.
Why?
It's sometimes she puts some
She is funny.
tongue-in-cheek quotes up here, like "Good thing you're young, Tiger. Glad you have time for us.
Love
Very
that.
true. I'm so sorry.
Carla's so sweet, though. She doesn't mean it the way
No.
that I read it.
No,
No, but it's good.
But she did say she's had her bulletproof coffee this morning, and she's ready for some great gardening
Here's
advice.
the thing.
Ooh.
She has the same sense of humor we do.
yeah.
That's why we identify.
Yeah.
Great gardening. No guest, but it's about an hour and a half or 2 hours of us.
Well, since I thought that we were going to be talking gourds,
Yeah, in the newsletter.
I did put a little bit about gourds in the newsletter. And one of the ones that's always fascinated me, and you might know it because I think the Spanish name or Mexican name for it is chilicote. Have you ever heard of that?
No, not sure.
It's Cucurbis ficofolia,
Uh-huh.
which is the fig leaf gourd.
Cucurbis ficofolia?
Yeah, and I planted it because it's also known as the 7-year melon.
70 or 7?
7.
Okay.
And the reason it's called a 7-year melon is that when you harvest it, you can keep it for 7 years.
Oh, I thought it took 7 years to grow.
That's what
No,
I
no,
thought,
no,
too.
no.
Wait 7 years.
So that idea just fascinated me. So they grew it a lot in, I think, maybe some of the indigenous Indian cultures, the like the Aztecs and the Mayans
Yeah.
and in areas down there. Because in times of famine, you could have these gourds stored up. And thus, Brian, when you're out of your gourd,
Thus?
you're in trouble, right?
You know where I hear thus? Sporting events, the Bible, and John.
Sporting events.
Yeah, like they'll say, 7 yards, thus the young man, or thus. The word
I
thus
don't think
seems
I've
to be.
ever heard that in a sporting event.
Yeah, they work it in there. But how many times do you use that word during your everyday life? You don't.
Not many.
There's going to be a drought. Thus, your plants may not do well this year.
But
Good
back to the
gourd.
fig leaf gourd.
Yes.
So you can plant this thing, and it's a huge plant to begin with. And I planted one at my old house, and it grew up my neighbor's tree. And
That's rude.
there were they looked like watermelons hanging all over the tree. There were probably 30 of these things. And my neighbors came over and said his son was really excited. He goes, "Are those watermelon?" And I say, no, they're virtually unedible gourds.
Right.
Or inedible gourds. But they kind of look like watermelons, and the fact that they can use them, and they use them in I think for some health reasons, and then, of course, they're edible, and it's just a fun thing to do. So I think, I'm not positive, but I think I put a link to Kitazawa Seed Company because it's also used in Asian culture. I forget what they call it, though. They call it something else. It was in the newsletter. If you get the newsletter,
Then you'll know.
you'll know about
Well,
it.
how do we get the newsletter? Do they have to go to gardenamerica.com?
I really don't know.
People just
It just
get
happens.
it. It just happens.
They just get it. Well, go to gardenamerica.com. Just go there. Just
All
go.
right.
Go there.
And see what happens.
There's things happening there. Lots of things happening.
Do you know, just an aside, since we're talking about the newsletter, back when we started up, we would have, I think it was like anywhere between 11 and 17% of the people we sent the newsletter to would open it up that particular day. And that was about the average for newsletter. But right now we're 45 to 50% of all the newsletters we send out get opened.
Really?
Yeah.
And we give credit to our fantastic viewers and listeners, right?
And to the authors of some exciting articles that
True.
appear every week.
You have to have content before anyone's interested.
That's right.
Well, speaking of that, I believe there is a quote. Every week there is a quote in the newsletter. And this is one of your favorite quotes, John. I know that you like this because it kind of rolls off your tongue. Very easy to read and very easy to understand.
Whoops. I just lost it.
Whoops is never good.
No.
Whoops. If you're having surgery and you happen to be awake, your doctor
You
says,
never want to
"Whoops."
hear a doctor say whoops.
Whoops. Or what is that? All right, you got the quote?
I do.
Okay, beautiful. Ladies and
Quotes
gentlemen,
from
John Bagnasco.
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah, that's easy. We know who he is.
Yeah, he wrote House of the Seven Gables and Scarlet Letter.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, go ahead.
Anyway, he said that there's no season when such pleasant and sunny spots may be lighted on and produce so pleasant an effect on the feelings is now in October.
Okay, translate that.
He read it a lot better than I did.
I think it has to do with what a great month October is.
Well, the thing is that
Things change. We're getting into the fall.
I think what he's saying, if you got a sunny spot and you go and you're just sitting there in the sun, it's never as pleasant as it is right now in October, because there's not a lot to do. In the
Right.
spring, there's all kinds of stuff to do. In October, towards the end, you've already done your harvest, so you can just go out there, sit in the sun, and rest.
And I think for some people, it's their last chance to get that sun.
Right.
Oh, before
the
snows come in. Yeah.
And it's kind of like you do it now, otherwise you're going to miss it.
We got to take a break. I want to welcome those on Biz Talk Radio listening to a pre-recorded show from last week. Those on Facebook Live, it is live. Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox back with us. We're going to take a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Stay with us. Happy weekend. This is Garden America. It is Garden America. We are back from the break. I want to thank those tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, those of you on Facebook Live. Remember, go to gardenamerica.com. We'll be talking more about our big trip to Costa Rica. Need more people to sign up. We're going to have a great time. Costa Rica, April 20th through the 29th, 2024. We're going to be there. We want you to be there as well. Also, later this afternoon, this show right here, really big show, this show right here will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, Tiger.
Yeah.
We've got a YouTube channel, Garden America Radio Show. So this show will be uploaded, all previous shows already uploaded on our YouTube channel.
You know what's coming up on the 21st of October?
Oh, yeah, the not the vernal equinox.
The autumnal equinox?
The autumnal?
No, we've already had the autumnal.
So which one is it? I get confused.
Neither one.
What is it?
It's the deadline to save $100 to go on our Costa Rica trip.
I'm such a comedian. Yes, it is.
So you can, if you want to go, you can sign up at any time. But if
Right.
you want to go and save $100, you need to do it by
Before
the 21st.
October 21st.
Right.
And again, Costa Rica, it's going to be a great time.
What does Costa Rica mean in English, Tiger?
Tiger.
Rich coast. Or rich coastline.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You are very
Plentiful.
Rica man. You know that?
What would the opposite of rich is poor? What would the poor coastline be?
Barato is cheap. So, like,
Costa Barata?
Yeah.
Costa Barato.
We're not going.
It does sound like
Is
a place, doesn't
Barato or Barata?
Barato.
Barato.
Costa Barato.
We're not going to Costa Barata.
No, we're going to Costa Rica.
There you go.
Lots happening. I know we've got orchids, we've got a coffee plantation, we've got zip lining. John's favorite part, the volcano. You've always been a lava guy, haven't you?
I always wanted a lava lamp, and I never had one.
I had several.
Did you? I could picture you.
They sell them now. Maybe I'll get
Do
you one
they?
for
Yeah,
Christmas.
you can get one. You can still get one.
That's his gift.
Yeah.
Lava
Exactly,
lamp.
lava lamp.
Tiger.
Yes.
Rick in Idaho would like to know what the tomato of the year was.
Last year?
Yeah, this year. The one we
or
had.
this year. Bronze torch, I think. Something like that, right? Wasn't it?
Bronze torch?
I think it was bronze torch. Some kind of torch one.
The one for next year hasn't been announced.
No,
yet,
not
has it?
yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to follow up with your gourd conversation because one of the reasons why I did say we were going to talk gourds today is that they announced they had the annual largest pumpkin competition up in Half Moon Bay a week ago or a couple weeks back. Did you guys see that?
Well, obviously that's in California.
Yes. But the planet's largest pumpkin is now over 2,700 pounds. That's the new record.
Oh, it's a new record.
Okay,
Yeah.
folks, that's over a ton
Right.
because 2,000 pounds is a ton. It's a ton. It's a ton and a half.
2,749 pounds. Yeah.
And which
And
they had to
it
be
was-
moved by crane, right?
Yeah, and a giant semi truck. But it was a 43-year-old Minnesota man, Travis Geinger, a horticulture and landscape teacher at Anacoa Technical College. But it just gives me hope. I mean, he's 43 years old. I'm 42.
Oh, you
Next
got a year to
I
grow
could,
yours. You
I could do it. I can do it. I still have
Now, what is the secret to growing a big gourd?
water.
Lots of water. Really?
Yeah.
Water, fertilizer.
Yeah. And so what they do is it needs to have the genetics, right? So the seed that you start with, it can't just be any pumpkin seed.
That's a good point because
Yes.
this 2,700-pound world record, the seeds are going to be like $100 a piece.
Yes, because
For one seed.
And the seeds weigh 300 pounds.
yeah,
No, they don't.
And it's because it's got the genetic ability in there
Already
to do
there.
it.
It's like it's in its DNA,
Yes.
basically.
And so what they do is they have that seed start first. That's the first part. Okay, then they plant. Who knows? Maybe 3 or 4 plants in an area, and then they let them grow out. And then he decides, or she decides, which plant they want to focus their energy on, and then that plant they just take care of, and they let it grow out. All the leaves grow, kept clean and nice. And then when it starts to produce pumpkins, they'll go through and they'll pick a pumpkin, and on that one plant, they'll only let one pumpkin grow. So all of its energy. And do you remember we had somebody on a while back that
Natural
grew
selection.
large pumpkins, and it was something like they would take up like over. I feel like it was over like
Square
15
mile,
to 20.
I think.
Well, but I'm saying like 15 to 20 gallons of water a day. Like the pumpkin actually puts on weight every day at its peak time of like many pounds because it's all water.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if he was saying that. Don't they attach a wick to the pumpkin? Like in the stem, they have a wick that goes into a trash can full of water, so it can actually wick water into it.
Yeah, because it's just growing, and that's all water. It's all water. And it was, so this, I'm assuming he grew it in Minnesota where he's from, because the prize for that was $9 a pound plus a $30,000 bonus for,
Wow.
Just for growing a gourd?
yeah. So that was almost 60 grand. But see, in California, it would have cost you 60 grand to grow it because of the water. that's why nobody's growing them in California. In Minnesota, they have plenty of water.
I always remember this story. I think it must have been 20 years ago now that people in Rancho Bernardo or Poway. I see Lila's online. Maybe she knows if it happened in Poway. But these people grew one of those giant pumpkins in their backyard, and they lived in one of those homes where their backyard was a hillside. So they planted the pumpkin up on the top so it could come down the hillside, and they'd have plenty of room for it to grow. So they did the thing, and they kept it to just one pumpkin, but the one they kept was at the top of the hill. And when it got to be like 300 pounds,
See what's coming. Don't you?
rolled down the hill and smashed through their sliding glass door.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
And that was only 300 pounds. Imagine if it was 2,700 pounds, it probably would have knocked the house off
Well,
its
is
foundation.
there a picture? Can we get a picture of that?
Yes.
We can post it on our Facebook feed here, and then people can do the old click and
They're
click
never
and watch.
round. The giant pumpkins are never round.
No, because once you get to a point, you can't turn it over anymore.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the reason why pumpkins are round when they get is the growers kind of position them so they'll grow kind of round. But then the big pumpkins that you buy at the grocery store, you always look, there's always like that flat side.
Right.
And it's because when they get to a certain size, they can't grow.
These giant
way.
ones remind me of Jabba the Hutt.
Yes.
Really, that's what they look
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
Lisa says that her uncle, I guess, was growing some big pumpkins, and he fed him a milk mixture.
there's all kinds of
Everyone's got their secret recipe.
there's all kinds of
right.
secret.
Never heard of
What
that.
they want to do, what they grow, how they grow it. Yeah.
By the way, Marguerite's listening up in Redding, and I was wondering, here in San Diego, it's always hot in October. We had 1 week of really hot weather, then it cooled down. It was a week in the 70s, right?
Right.
Now we got another week coming up in the 80s.
Gosh,
And
stop.
And I wonder if Redding's going through the same thing right now.
We can find out. We have to take a break, though, first of all, John. Then
right.
we'll find out about Redding and the weather.
Okay.
And this upcoming week with higher temperatures. It's October. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some fall weather. Let's cool off just a bit. We're going to take a break. These messages coming your way on Biz Talk Radio. All righty, yes, indeed, we are back. Thank you to those tuned in on Biz Talk Radio each and every week, supporting our sponsors. Facebook Live, always good to see you. Tiger posted that link and a picture of the giant gourd, 2,700 pounds. It's on our Facebook page right now.
There's a guy here in San Diego, and I haven't seen him in a while. I used to see him every year, and I know exactly who he was because he used to drive this pickup truck, and his company was telephones, like. He did like network lines and for businesses or
And you'd see him
homes
driving around town all the time?
Yeah. And during this time of year, he always had a pumpkin in the back of his truck because he grew these giant pumpkins. And he would just drive around with it for the month. And then he would give the pumpkin to UCSD, the college, at the end of in November. And then the college would drop it off. They have this big thing every year where they drop things off of the roof. And then they would drop it off of the roof,
or a building
year.
or something like a
Yeah, it was a building, like
4-story building.
It was something like that. Yeah,
4th floor.
I remember. I don't know. At UCSD, it had to do with something. I don't know if it had to do with the end of their finals or some kind of class or something like that. I would always see this guy, and I haven't seen him in a while. I'll have to follow up, see what happened with him.
There's a YouTube channel where these guys are on this bridge. It's a huge bridge. I'm not sure if they're on the side where there's a road or whatever, but there's a huge bridge. And then below, it's like grass and kind of wilderness. And they're up maybe, 300 feet or whatever, and they just drop certain things to see what will happen. A basketball, an anvil, a pumpkin, or a gourd. And these things just explode. And, of course, they're all laughing. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But can you imagine dropping a 2,700-pound gourd off a bridge or a building?
Now, if you did do that and a feather at the same time,
You're
in
talking
a
about
vacuum,
that, you're talking about that.
They'd both reach the bottom at the same time.
Is that Newton's law?
No, I don't know. I think
terminal velocity.
I thought
Newton's law of gravity or not?
I thought it was Galileo or Da Vinci. One of those two did that experiment. Was it Newton?
But I know what you're saying is in terms of first of all, anything that you
Objects
drop,
fall at the same rate.
Yeah,
and that's 120 miles an hour.
Yes,
if you say
correct.
Yeah, it's 120 miles an hour.
It's
Can't go any
physics.
faster than that. The feather, though,
can't go any faster.
What's that?
Why can't it go faster?
Terminal velocity.
It's
That's
terminal
what it
velocity. It's the law of gravity.
That's
Not
the
if
law.
you have a jetpack on the back of it.
Well, but that's different. You're not falling.
Oh, okay.
You're flying down then.
Tiger, where did we get him? Where'd we-
Sweet
Where'd we
Caroline.
fly?
What was it?
No, it was,
I was going to ask, since you want me to go off subject like that, do you remember when we were kids, there was a poem you had to learn about October? Do you remember October gave a party? The leaves by hundreds came, the chestnuts, oaks, and maple, in leaves of every name. You guys never had to learn that?
First time I've ever heard that. Poem.
Really?
California.
Well, California, Michigan, Detroit,
All
a lot
made
different.
up stuff.
Okay.
You guys had that snow. You couldn't get out much.
That could be. But there was no snow in October.
Never?
Cindy says she lives in Clayton, California, and her summer was very mild. Why are her limes not juicy?
Ooh. So, when we had our friend, why can't I think of his name right now? The Rose for Dummy book writer.
Lance Walheim.
Lance
Right.
Walheim, the gin guy. We call him the gin guy now.
The gin guy. I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say that.
You should tell our listeners that it's not because he drinks, but because he produces
He produces
flavored gins, right?
Yes.
But he's a big citrus grower, And
Right.
I was shocked when we had him on and we were talking about like fruit and why they do certain things, and watering, obviously has to do with a lot of it, but and how he got into the time of year, and the seasons have more to do it. So sometimes people think like the cracked fruit over water, dry fruit not enough water, but in relation, it was when the fruit was at a certain time, whether it was in its pollination phase or whether it was in its growing phase or anything, in the weather, that's what more had to do with what changes the fruit. So I'm thinking that if they were kind of like dry limes,
and cool weather
cool
without
weather,
the heat to ripen them.
and that's the thing, you just hit it right there.
Yeah.
We had our friend with the grapes, and without the heat this year, a lot of our production is going to be very poor from the standpoint of not quality. So less juicy grapes, less juicy fruit, all
Right.
of that, because
Right.
we've had such cool temperatures. It would have been great if we were growing broccoli or cauliflower, but
Yeah.
but not the heat-loving fruit like we normally have here in California, like grapes and citrus. So
And we had an extended spring, too. Cool weather in the spring where it didn't warm up till like 4th of July.
right.
So now, is it
So
unusual,
it wasn't so much like people say, "Oh, we had plenty of water," but that doesn't matter.
is it unusual that within the last month, I'm starting to see citrus on my tree?
I think that probably is because we had such a cool season this year.
What you're talking about,
I have little
Different
tangerines.
varieties, though. But you have mandarins, and that's normal
Yes.
for them.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure because
Yeah, no, they ripen in the winter.
Yeah.
I think you have gold nugget, and that's got the longest ripening season.
Yeah.
I think they start in the end of December and go through to like May,
And
something like that.
is it Chinese or they do like holiday, like usually you see mandarin
For the Chinese New Year.
Well, during the winter time for the Chinese events, like it's big.
I don't know about mandarins, but I know they do the kumquats.
Kumquat. That's what it.
Yeah,
Kumquat,
kumquats are important. Paula says that Fallbrook has the Wellburn Gourd Farm, and it's a great place. And I'll tell you a little bit of trivia about the Wellburn Gourd Farm.
I've seen photos.
They were my next-door neighbors when I lived in Duluth,
Yeah.
and their daughter used to babysit my kids.
What?
Yep.
really,
And they had we had, trying to think, we lived on 30 acres. We were renting a place. We didn't own the 30 acres.
this is where the whole flood thing and the bridge came into play.
Yeah, yeah. And they grew, they had, most of the acreage was planted in avocados, and then there was an acre of persimmons. And they made more money on the acre of persimmons than they did on the 25 acres of avocados.
Avocado.
But the Wellburns grew the gourds, and they had, trying to think if they had, I think it was just an acre of gourds. It was between 1 and 3 acres. Anyway, they were the world's largest producer of gourds.
And so, in a commercial gourd farm, do they just grow them in fields and then
Yeah.
they just go out and hand pick them all?
Right. Right. Well, people would come there and pick them, and then it developed over the years into where they had an art exhibition with it, carved gourds. Mm-hmm. There's some really, really pretty ones. I mean, some people, if you Google images of carved gourds, you'll see how pretty they look. But yeah, that was interesting that you could pick something as esoteric as that and become the world's largest provider. I think they shipped them, or people at least came from all over the country, if not all over the world, to get them.
Well, Carla's got a citrus question. John and Tiger.
Speaking of citrus,
Yes, indeed.
she has a small Satsuma mandarin tree that she'd like to move to a pot. It's about the size you would find in a 10-gallon can.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice?
The pot needs to be the size of a half whiskey barrel, So as far as start off with that, if you're going to move it into a pot,
Right.
The smallest pot it could be in for the rest of its life is half whiskey barrel size pot. John will. I say for most people, like a good potting soil is important, but some people will say a cactus mix. In terms of
Because of
for
drainage and
citrus,
stuff?
yeah.
I would use an ocean forest
Yeah, but-
because that would be perfect.
Because I say too, I agree. Like I like a
Cactus mix
rich.
if you're going to water it all the time, but she lives in Huntington Beach, so that might be okay.
Yeah.
Won't dry out as fast as inland. Inland, you would never use a cactus mix. It's just going to be too
porous.
dry out. Yeah, it's going to dry out too quickly.
Organic fertilizer regularly. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is they grow it and it does good for a year. And then they're like, oh, it's not doing so well. It's like, well, when was the last time you fertilized it? And they're like, I haven't. I'm like, well,
There you go.
in the ground, they can leach up more nutrients from everywhere. In
Right.
the pot, if you don't give it anything, it doesn't get it. And they use a lot of nutrients.
Well, if you do use the ocean forest potting soil, don't fertilize it.
It's got just about everything you need. in
Well,
that
to
soil.
start out
To
with.
start.
Yeah, so
for
you
starting
could,
off.
if you did it this time of year, I definitely would not fertilize until spring.
Yeah.
It'll have everything it needs until
We got to take
spring.
a break.
All
So
right.
stay on time with our good friends at the network Biz Talk Radio. One more segment coming up if you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio for hour number 1. News coming up top of the hour. We're going to take a break. Those of us on Facebook Live keep on rolling along. This is Garden America. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate your patronage, whatever that might be. Back from the break, quicker on Facebook Live, a bit longer on Biz Talk Radio. Final segment of hour number 1. If you are tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, news coming up. We come back at 6 minutes after for hour number 1, or number 2. First hour's 1, John, right? Second hour's 2. Do I have that correct?
Oh, I
Something
thought you were talking about what you're going to do during the break.
I don't know what's going on. Anyway, we are back. I do know that.
But Cindy and Carla's notes about citrus. Cindy says my limes are not juicy this year, and we were talking about probably had to do a lot with the weather.
Weather, right.
And Carla had mentioned growing a citrus in a pot. Now, one of the things, and I've said it before, we talked about fertilizing. The other thing that's important with citrus is using a product called Citrus Growers Blend. I recommend because it has a lot of micronutrients in it and things like calcium that you don't always get in regular fertilizers, and especially if you're growing them in pots. Again, back to this idea that they only have to work with what you give it, and if you're not giving it the proper amount of calcium and other micronutrients that citrus need to produce their flavors and water content and all of that, you're gonna struggle over time because that soil just becomes more and more. I mean, potting soil starts off great, but the more years it goes by, and even if you use organic fertilizers, you're just putting in more or less NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash.
Right.
You're not putting in the calciums, the micronutrients, the other metals that you would be putting in with something else. So Citrus Growers Blend is a product that I recommend for people that have fruit problems. Because remember that bond between fruit and flower is made of calcium. That's why, tomatoes and, squashes, they talk about blossom end rot, and they'll use a calcium spray, or they call it blossom set spray, and it's calcium also, to help with the fruiting idea as far as like getting good production and getting good fruit. So use I think it's Grow More is the Citrus Growers Blend that I usually see. So it's got to have more than just fertilizer, though. So you got to supplement that with something. I don't know if John and Bob, it doesn't have micronutrients. It just has humus in it, which is a good blend of like organic minerals and things. But
Well, usually, not always, but usually there's enough micronutrients in the soil for the plants to survive if they can take them up. But they're not available unless you've got humic acids breaking them down and making them available to the plants. So in that sense, it would help.
Yeah.
But like you say, it'd probably be a good idea to add some extra.
Yeah. So that should answer the citrus questions as far as growing them in pots or having problems with fruit. I have this one lime tree that I brought from my old house, and I think I put like salt water on it one time. Like, I almost killed it. Like
Salt
I can't
water?
remember. Yeah, like it was a mess. I almost killed this tree, and I'm like,
You
but
know,
I'm-
he surfs a lot, so he would always
You're a mess.
bring it to the beach with him.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you must
always
have loved
dry.
this tree to bring it with you.
well, like it was like my first tree at the first home that we bought.
Okay.
and I'm like, this means something to
It's
me,
like
right?
framing your first dollar.
Yeah.
that you
and
made.
so I brought it to our new house, and I'm like, all right, I planted. It's a lime tree, and I almost killed it, just absolutely hurt. But I was like, I'm not going to give up on it, and I didn't give up on it, and it's actually thriving now, but it is absolutely covered with leaf miner. Like the whole tree looks like it's just like a giant leaf miner farm, and so it's got some fruit on it,
But it's okay. It's,
yeah, I mean the leaf miner is more cosmetic, but the tree's doing well.
I had that problem with one of my citrus and was surprised how quickly it just disappeared
Yeah.
when I put the systemic
Right.
on it.
Yes. I had another orange that I did use the systemic on, and the trees have never, the leaves have never looked better. Yeah, exactly. But leaf miner.
Carla says that she has Happy Frog potting soil, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I do know the representative from Fox Farm told me that Happy Frog and Ocean Forest were identical potting soils, and the only difference was the organic fertilizers that were added to the Ocean Forest.
Yeah.
So Happy Frog should be fine as far as drainage and everything else, and if you add the micronutrients that Tiger's talking about, it should be okay, Carla.
Yeah, I think like the blend of, they probably use pumice. The blend of pumice, fir bark, sand, and compost is the same, except for, Ocean Forest has kelp and, I don't know, oyster shells or something like that. And,
Well,
and Happy
Ocean
Frog has
Forest,
like
right?
bat guano and worm castings or something. Yeah, exactly.
Tiger, Cindy wants to save $100 and go to Costa Rica with us, but she needs a link.
Okay.
Is there a way to post a link online for her?
I'll send it
For
right
her.
now. Send it in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's online. See, Tanya says that she used the Grow More Citrus Growers blend last year based on your recommendation, and her Meyer lemon tree's doing much, all in capitals, much better, which reminds me she needs to give it another dose, right, Tiger?
Usually annually.
Once a year? Yeah.
Usually annually you want to do that. And like you said, normally in the ground, they're there, but like you say, it's not available all the time to the plant to actually pick up. So this makes it available, which is nice. You're kind of guaranteed good results with it.
Grow More also has a chelated iron, and I've been planting roses all summer, and I planted a couple this week, and I'm mixing with the organic fertilizer I'm mixing some chelated iron in there too, because it makes a big difference in alkaline soils. Iron uptake is inhibited by the alkalinity of the soil. So the more acid it is, the more iron available. Or if you add chelated iron's in a form that plants can use right away.
Hey, we're going to take a break. We've got news coming up on Biz Talk Radio. Those on Facebook Live, it'll be a much quicker break, so do stay with us. And again, keep those questions coming, those comments here on our Facebook page. Tiger just posted the link to Costa Rica. It's up there, the entire itinerary. You can go to gardenamerica.com as well, which we urge you to do anyway all the time. It does help us. That said, taking time out for news, top of the hour, Biz Talk Radio. We are back at 6 minutes after on Biz Talk Radio, but almost immediately here on Facebook Live. Do stay with us. Happy weekend. This is Garden America. All right, we are back after that news break on Biz Talk Radio here on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. We are back in studio today. John Begnesco, I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox. Good to have you along. Those on Facebook, Biz Talk Radio, we certainly appreciate it. Talking about Costa Rica, and again, that link is on our Facebook page. Couple of questions, though, to get to as we start things off once again, guys.
Yeah, so to answer Kevin's question first, growing tips, kumquat in a pot. Is it just like growing any other citrus? And yes, just like growing any other citrus, when it comes to growing a kumquat, watering, sunlight, fertilization.
They're naturally smaller trees, so they're probably going to do better in a pot than other citrus.
And I think that they could do better in even a smaller pot. Like I said before, a standard, normal citrus, half whiskey barrel. Kumquats, sometimes you might be able to get away with something smaller because
for a while. I think eventually though, you should
have to.
Yeah.
So because they're naturally more compact trees.
Do you like kumquats?
I do.
Do you really?
I do. I really do. I like the ability to just take them off, no peeling, eat them, and I like the sweet and sour what the flavor of it.
John doesn't like. You don't like them.
Well, I don't like Nagami kumquats, which are the common ones that you're talking about, the sweet and sour. Mm-hmm. But the Miowa kumquat is round rather than elongated, and it's sweet. There's no tartness to it at all.
What about
loquats?
loquats?
No fun.
Highquats the loquats are easier to get.
They are much easier to pick, aren't they?
No, I like loquats. There's one called Big Jim that's really good. I think Gold Nugget is the most common loquat, but loquats are really good. And to me, that's a great plant because it's ornamental, I think. So you can work it anywhere in the landscape, and you can't buy loquats or rarely buy loquats in the supermarket.
Yeah, it's a bit, so you have them.
So I think it's always good to plant things that you can't get at the supermarket.
Yeah, it's funny because, they aren't available in the grocery store, but you can walk down any street in San Diego and
grab
find some loquats.
Yeah, just growing over a fence as you're on the sidewalk. Just pick a few.
It looks like Veronica's question was answered about the chelated iron brand name.
Grow More.
She might have missed, though, because that came after we talked about it. So, it's Grow More.
Now, the Grow More is G-R-O, right?
No, G-R-O-W.
It is. Okay.
G-R-O-W-M-O-R-E.
But there's a lot of Club? But there's a lot of chelated iron is it's like bat guano. Like it's a product.
Right.
So where you're at, you might have another local company or another brand that's available to you, but you're just looking for chelated iron.
Yeah. Well, she's in Spring Valley, so there's a lot of garden centers in the
Hunters
area
is
that have
right
it.
there. Rick, is there a secret to growing large onions? Yes. Do not plant shallot seeds.
Did you do that?
No, but I mean, large onions, the secret to growing large onions, you got to start with the right variety first. There's onions that just don't get big.
Right.
So, kind of like we're talking about pumpkins, you can't just go to a store and buy white onions and expect them to be large white onions or red onions.
Rick is up in Idaho, so if he wants large onions, he could grow, and they do really well up there, the Walla Walla.
Yes, that Maui onion or whatever. It's kind of like
it's a little different, but
like,
it's in that group. It's a large one.
Yeah,
it has a different day length requirements that we don't experience in San Diego. So in San Diego, they don't get as big in Southern California, but up in Idaho, Walla Wallas would be great. Were there ever things that you were raised up doing, and then you never, as you get older, never questioned them? So you just
went along with it,
and you just think,
this is the way it's done.
The way it's done,
right, of course.
And this is something I never looked into. And you're talking about train of thought here. This is on topic. So when my dad would grow onions, when we were little and we'd plant onions, he would always say that after they grew for a month or so, he would cut the tops so that they didn't continue growing on top and that the strength would go into the bulb itself. And as I think about that now, that doesn't make sense. But I'm wondering if that was true.
Well, how successful was he? Did his theory work?
Well, I don't know. He always had, I didn't like onions as a kid, and I can't eat onions now.
Gosh, I love it.
But we always had good onions.
But I mean, when it comes to growing large onions, there's two things that come to mind for me on how to grow a large onion. Number one is when you space them out. If you crowd up the area where you're growing them, you're going to have trouble growing large fruit, right?
You need a hand space apart.
Yeah, you need the room. You can't just have them all growing in a bunch because
That seems close.
they won't ever really develop. And then number two, like what John mentioned with the Walla Walla, is they need that season. They need that
Right.
full season to grow. Where us in Southern California, the reason why we don't get a lot of large fruit here is because we have a very short window where it goes from like cool to hot, and things grow, very quickly at that time. Where
Well, Walla Walla also needs a long day length, which we don't have down here.
oh yeah, exactly. So like all these things play into the size of whatever you're growing. So when it comes to growing onions, I think you would, for us in Southern California, you would want to start them in the early spring, so you have a nice, good, long growing season. I think most people think, oh, May, for everybody else, May is the start of spring. Well, not for us, though. I think March is the start of spring for us. Where May is the start of spring for the East and maybe the, North.
Mother's Day back in the Midwest.
But not for us.
Well, you mentioned the days aren't long enough.
Yeah.
So the further north you go, the more successful you
yeah,
would
they
be.
have longer. Yeah, that's
Sure.
why in Alaska they get
Yeah,
giant
right?
cabbages, right?
Yes.
Because it's like 20 hours of daylight
sun.
a day.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that has to do with a lot of it. I mean, fertilization and watering play a big key into things, but I think it has to do a lot more with, the time that you plant things and also making sure they get proper spacing because they talk about that square foot gardening and fitting all this stuff into a box, and people try to jam these boxes full of fruit and or vegetables, and they do get production, but it's always small or medium because John corrected me on the kumquat growing into a half whiskey barrel. It's not because this kumquat's going to fall over because it's too big. It's because that root system needs to be that size for that plant to actually
All right.
do
Yeah.
good production, And if you're jamming all your veggies into a box, someone's going to lose something, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's
there's
only
a-
so much.
Nothing worse than jammed veggies.
Jam veggies. Yeah.
It's called ketchup.
The speaking of veggies,
Yeah.
following your train of thought, even though it's hot right now in San Diego, it's time to plant veggies, right?
Yeah.
Winter vegetables.
One would think.
One would think.
Thus,
I'm just hoping this is the last week of these temperatures because we've had a few cool days and it's been very, very nice, very refreshing.
it can last all the
November.
way into mid-November,
of course.
and then it's pretty much winter.
True.
But our leaves in San Diego start to change color when December, right around Christmas.
December 25th.
Yeah.
and then they're done changing on January 1.
Right.
We've got to be the only people on the planet who start complaining about it. It's too hot. I'm tired of the heat. What's with all the warmth and sunshine? We have about a 5-degree tolerance here
Yes.
in California,
Terrible.
Southern California.
Yeah.
It's too cold. It's too hot. It's too wet. Too much rain.
This I always tell people if they want to visit San Diego, October is the best month because it's usually clear, sunny. There's some warmth to it. It's cool also, but I don't want to visit July muggy marine layer
And,
San
there's
Diego,
fewer people here for the most
and
part.
and
you know?
you get the benefit of not having to battle with everybody else.
Everybody
here in
else.
San Diego.
We're going to take a break on that note to keep our train of thought here. Whatever's on your mind, those on Facebook Live, we appreciate you tuned in on Biz Talk Radio. I'm Brian Main, John Bagnesco, Tiger Palafox, And we're going to take a break to pay the bills here on Biz Talk Radio. Do stay with us as we continue on Garden America. Garden America has returned from the break. And again, as we always mention, we hope you had a good break as we continue. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. More questions? They used to say keep those cards and letters coming. We say keep those comments and questions coming on Facebook Live, John. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I
said that.
I've gotten a card, but it's been a while. I can't remember getting a letter recently.
Let me ask you this.
What?
When is the last time you went on vacation out of town and you sent a postcard to somebody?
Oh,
Can't even remember.
no.
Probably back in the 70s, 80s.
I
maybe.
think I haven't done that since they had the forever stamps. Because you used to be able to get postcard stamps were a penny or two pennies cheaper.
Exactly. Something really cheap.
Yeah.
And then there were the special airmail stamps. Ooh, you want this to go airmail? Wow, aren't you special?
Yeah, fancy.
Do you remember those airmail stamps?
No.
Yeah.
I do remember them. I saw them on like old
Yeah. You know, it was like
old things that
what you don't remember is, hey, get off the phone. This is a long distance phone call. It's costing us money.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. My dad would do that all the time.
Or a collect call to somebody.
Jen, they're calling long distance.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Did you read the question from Diane?
No, we're going to get to that right now, right, John?
All right. Well, Cindy, by the way, commented used to be June gloom in San Diego. We still have June gloom.
Yes.
And then we have May Gray.
May gray, then June gloom.
That's what I'm saying. Like everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to visit San Diego in summer. It's actually not that great.
Yeah.
You know what I did last weekend that I haven't done in over 30 years?
What? Oh my goodness.
It was hot. And I said, hey, Shannon, want to go to the beach?
Really?
Did you really?
Yeah.
Man.
I don't.
Yeah,
You crazy
You're not a
kids, you?
big. You're not a big.
I'm not
go
a
to the
big beach guy.
You're
person.
not
No.
a beach guy, are you? He's not a beach guy.
See, I would see you. I'd be at the beach once a week just to walk, go down there, hang out because he's in Fallbrook, right? So he gets hot.
Right.
Right.
So it's a good escape, and he just wanders through his roses. Why not just wander along the coast?
You have to understand, I grew up, you know where the Catamaran Hotel is?
Yeah.
I grew up right there on
Right
PB
there.
Drive. I had the ocean and the bay. We kept everyone kept their surfboards in our garage. I would just walk down to the wall. I mean, it was my life. And now that I'm away from that, it's like, oh, the beach, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe we should go to the beach.
Yeah.
But then the parking.
See, but that's
Yikes.
the beauty of living in San Diego. You don't have to go in July. You go
Go
in
anytime.
October, and you go on Tuesday afternoon.
Anyway, back to the
All
question.
right.
Yes.
Back to Diane. A lot of tomato questions today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you know why?
Yeah. By the way, winter tomatoes, which are tomatoes that produce during cool season, it's too late to plant.
Well, you have to plant before the fact.
Yeah, you should have planted them back in August. Diane says, good morning from Reading. She's got a tomato question. She's got 3 different kinds that did really well this year. She got a lot of good-sized fruit, but they kept getting smaller and smaller, and now her cherry tomatoes are pea-sized, and her regular tomatoes are ping-pong size. Her vines are about 7 feet long, and they're in a 3-foot-tall raised bed. What causes them not to get bigger?
It's normal, right?
Well, there's several things going on.
Yeah.
One is Reading.
Yep.
Some 100-degree temperatures stress them out.
Tomatoes like heat, but that's ridiculous.
But then the other thing that I would think of, she says they're in a 3-foot raised bed, and now they're 7 feet tall.
Yep.
All the nutrients get taken up by that massive root systems, right? So you need to supplement with extra fertilizer. Would be my guess.
And the more you let the plant go, I feel also that sometimes it struggles to keep up with, production as far as the size or the volume.
And she's got plenty of production, just small fruit.
Yeah. But I mean, like what you say though, as far as like, you got to supplement it.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you keep
Right.
the plant compact too, it helps keep.
Oh yeah, if you want to increase the size of the fruit, like if you pull the
If you
suckers
lace-
off as
yeah,
it's
like
growing.
if you lace it out a little bit,
Right, yeah.
that's going to help too.
Hey, enough about these silly plant questions. We've got an eclipse going on here.
Is it happening right now?
Yeah, people are saying they're seeing it in various parts of California.
Really? Wonder what if it's cloudy outside.
It's happening here in
My-
Fortuna.
My parents went to New Mexico to go watch it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that's like the
Yes.
ground zero, I guess.
My parents, I never know where they're at anymore. They're always going somewhere. They're always.
Why not?
Yeah.
You're running
go
the show
for it.
now,
Yeah.
right?
They went there for a balloon festival and to watch the eclipse.
I can't. I mean, ever since you basically took over, I know that I'm spending more time out of town. How about you, John? I'm doing more. I'm doing a lot more since Tiger's the man now.
I'm wondering. You just mentioned the balloon festival.
Yes.
If you want, I'll forward it to you. But the Temecula
Oh, that one's coming up?
Wine Country Balloon Festival is in. Trying to think March or April or something. But
Yeah,
they
usually
want to know if you
Coincides with the
want to be
harvest.
part of it. If you want to talk to someone about it, if you want to visit it,
Okay.
I'll
you ever
send
been
you
in a
the
balloon?
information.
Have you taken a balloon ride?
Hey, would you ever
Trying to
go in a
think-
hot air balloon?
I did it years ago when I was working at a radio station here for a promotion.
There was a woman last week who was going to do that, but she died. She was the
Happy
one.
story.
Well, she was the one who went sky jumping and
Skydiving.
skydiving.
Right.
Yeah, and she was 104. So she sent the record for the oldest person ever to skydive.
Oh.
But then her next thing was to go up in a balloon, but she died a few days after
You
her
know, when it
skydive
comes to
thing.
skydiving, you don't need a parachute to go skydiving.
No.
You only need a parachute if you're going to skydive twice or more than once.
It's gracious.
Just wanted to throw that
Goodness
in.
gracious.
Years ago, I did the hot balloon thing, local radio station here
Yeah.
with Kixie. Now, the first thing I noticed is that basket only comes up to maybe your waist.
Really?
So there's more of you outside
Scary.
the
How scary. So you're top heavy. Like if you
You're-
like
you're-
lean
yeah.
over, you're going to fall
You're
over.
top heavy. No, it didn't bother me back then. We had a rough landing. We landed in somebody's backyard, actually.
That's what
Really?
they say. They those
Because you
things
have to,
crash all
and then
the
there's
time.
power lines. And now, would I do it today? No.
I've been in the one at the
Probably
Wild
not.
Animal Park. That's the only one.
It's tied to a rope.
I know, but you
They
still
let it
go
go
up.
up, and then they just pull it straight
that
back
was
down.
after he put a nickel in and did the horse thing that goes back and forth. The kids ride on. I'll tell you what, though, it's super quiet. It's like you're in another
Oh,
world.
is it quiet?
It's just
you don't
quiet.
hear the wind blowing because there's nothing for the wind to blow through.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just very quiet and very serene.
I remember that at White Sands National Monument. Have you ever been there?
No.
It's the white sand is actually gypsum. So it's just like miles of nothing but white sand.
Gee.
And what impressed me was how quiet it was because nothing grows, nothing living there, and there's
So there's no
Just quiet.
friction. There's no
Yeah,
friction to
and
make the noise.
right, and there's no trees or shrubs for the wind to blow through.
We're going to take a break. Is
All
there
right.
more to your story? Because I want to continue.
No, that was it.
Oh, good timing then.
I
We're
could
gonna take
could
a
add
break.
to that if you want, though.
We'll see.
It's a little humorous anecdote that goes with it.
We're going to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. Do stay with us here on Garden America. All right, back with your buddies here, Garden Buddies on Garden America here on this weekend. Pre-recorded show, so if you're listening to us after the fact, it may not be the weekend. It could be the middle of the night during the week on a Wednesday, John. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, maybe Spotify, maybe Google, maybe Alexa. Tell Alexa to play Garden America podcast. She'll automatically play the latest one. You have to ask for a previous show.
And
That's
how many
Alexa.
Alexas are going off across the country because of you saying that?
Hey, there goes
Oh,
my
there just
phone.
been one right now.
Well, that's my son calling from. Hey, we're on the air doing a garden show. Eric, how are
Morning,
you?
Eric.
Good morning.
He's calling from Wyoming.
Cut. Well, yeah, that's good. So we'll be off in about a half hour. Do you want to talk after that? Okay, and for those of you that have been with us for like 20 years, Eric used to be the phone screener back a long time ago. And that is Eric. So, Eric, thank you for calling, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good. See you guys later.
All right, take care. Bye. So there's Eric.
Hey,
I was going to add to the story quickly, though.
yeah, go please.
We were in White Sands National Monument, right? And this would have been 51 years ago,
Wow.
maybe 52. And I had both my brothers with me. My little brother Dave was about 9 years old at the time. And my brother Tom was probably about 12. I think about 12. But anyway, maybe a little bit older than that. So I just described the situation where everything was quiet and there's these hills, nothing but white sand. And so I popped into my head because my brother Tom was very competitive. And I said, Tom, I'll race you to the bottom of that hill. And I said, he goes, okay.
You're how old and he's how old?
I'm, I was 20. He would have been about 14 maybe.
Okay.
So he said, I'll race you to the bottom of the hill. So he said, all right. So I said, okay, ready, set, go. And he takes off racing down the hill as fast as he can go. And of course I stop because you're just going to fall once you get running so fast. And so he got halfway down the hill and then just was going so fast he tumbled the rest of the way down. I said, Tom, you won.
Now, is it soft? Like
yes,
gypsum?
It is gypsum.
So
yeah.
so it's powder. Is it powdery though?
It's not powdery. It's more like sand.
More like
So you don't
sand,
sink
but
in
soft.
too
a little
far.
more
You
granulated.
don't sink in
Okay.
too far then, right? But
No,
a
you
little
don't
bit?
sink, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's like walking on the beach.
Okay, interesting. You know, so what it made me think of, you talked about the no wind, no noise. Before we were talking about growing, letting things fall in a vacuum. I was listening to a podcast last week, and they were talking about growing plants in space. And the discussion was, how to grow plants in space because, you can't use a normal soil medium. With space, there's no gravity. So, how do you get something? And then how do you water it? You can't just have a watering can and water.
You have
like
to create
if
your own
if you ever
environment,
watched,
right? Inside, indoors.
Yeah, if you ever watched anything, the water just floats into bubbles. And then even above and beyond, like how to water it because you can't just pour into it. Those bubbles, how do you get them to attach to the root system to the plant? Because again, without gravity, without that ability to do all that, it's a difficult.
I have the solution. You plant them upside down so the roots are.
But there's no gravity. It doesn't grow upside down. And that was one of the big. There were two big problems that they had to solve with planting things in space. Number one, how to water them, because like what we just said, they can't get the water molecules to actually attach to the roots of the plant very easily. But number two is they have to grow things from seed. So a seed in, what we thought, and this is one of the things they found out, a seed in nature, naturally you plant it in the ground and it grows up. So they're like, oh, in space.
Because of geotropism, right?
Yeah, like all this stuff, gravity, forces, all kinds of stuff.
Molecules.
In space, atoms. In space, it's different. And so how are we going to get these seeds to grow the right way? If they're not going to know where to grow. And they planted a ton of seeds in zero gravity, and they planted them without light, with light, just all kinds of things. And they found they couldn't figure it out aside from the fact that the seed just found its way. Meaning, like, no matter if they planted it upside down, right side up, if they put light on or light off, wherever they put the seed positioned itself to grow whatever way it actually needed to grow. And it began to grow that way. And it all worked out. Like, they were really worried about this whole idea that, like, we're not going to be able to grow seeds the right way without gravity or light or anything like this. And come to find out, nature just...
Don't worry, I got this.
Right? It just was that. It's like, don't mess with me. I'll figure this out. And it just did it. And I thought that was really kind of just interesting.
What about mushrooms? Could you grow mushrooms?
So they do grow mushrooms because but they don't have the organic material that mushrooms need. unless they bring it with them. So they're trying to figure out stuff that they can grow with like Martian environment.
What's that movie Mars a few years ago with what's his name? Forget his name.
Matt Damon. Yeah.
Matt Damon, yeah,
Yeah.
who was doing the whole thing with
And
the
he grew
plants. And
mushrooms on poop. That's what he grew his mushrooms on.
But he was on Mars, not in space.
yeah. So Mars, okay. It's a different environment, less gravity, that whole thing.
No, it still had gravity, and it had a sun. Anyway, Lance Walheim's
Which son was that?
brother.
Kidding.
Was an astronaut, right?
right, his
Yeah.
brother brought a rose into space,
Like
a rose plant, right?
Really?
Yeah.
How fun. Is that plant still around?
You know, I think it is because I remember Lance spoke at the National Convention of the American Rose Society, and he brought that rose with him.
Oh, that's like the actual rose.
The
Not
actual
not
rose,
just
but
the
it-
variety.
No, he brought the actual
That is
rose,
so
but
cool.
I think it was preserved at that time.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't the same plant.
That's cool. That'd be cool if you're like this went into space and now it's back. And
I just heard
I
that
have
they
it in my
were
garden.
one of the goals that I think they just accomplished is that they can light fires in the spaceship now.
Really,
Yeah.
it's so funny the things that we take for granted sometimes, and where where
whole
it
vacuum thing?
still is a challenge.
There were a lot of people
Conspiracy theory.
Thank you. I do this for a living, John, but I appreciate that.
Conspiracy theorists are the ones who spread those.
Who say that we didn't go to the moon because look, there's footprints there, and then when they step, there's dust that goes up. So a guy created the same environment, created a vacuum,
Like a room that's a vacuum.
or no, it was like a big aquarium.
Okay.
And he put the closest thing he could come to
Some kind of
to
powdery
moon dust, very powder,
substance,
right?
yeah.
And he sucked all the air out, did the whole thing, and sure enough, there was the print and there was the dust that came up. He said, "No, you
Yeah.
can do it. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we know more about space though than we know about our own Earth.
Well, we know
from-
far less about the ocean,
That's what I'm saying. like,
yeah, than we
Yeah.
do space,
Yeah.
No,
It's
not really Earth, water.
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 We
Yeah,
know more about space than we do our own water.
But I mean, like we haven't been to so many places on our own Earth in the sense of like inside the Earth too. Like what's really happening.
No, what was
under the ocean.
Yeah,
in
wasn't
the
there
ground.
a thing where they just discovered or theorized? I'm always skeptical whenever I hear these discoveries, but that there's an ocean under the Earth that's way bigger than the oceans we have on top of the Earth.
I heard that.
Have you heard
like
that?
somewhere in the middle of the Earth, there's water. Is
Right.
what you're saying?
Right.
But
Yeah.
the further you get into the Earth, the more heat there is. You've got the crust, you've got the mantle, you've got the core. So there's a lot of heat. So I guess it's a
You're-
very hot ocean, right?
Well, you're going
Maybe.
by the old theories.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who says it's hot down there?
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah. Exactly.
I have.
When was
Journey to
last
the
time-
Center of the Earth.
Right, that
Remember
There's a whole nother world.
Pat
Exactly.
Boone and
a whole nother
James
world down
Mason, right?
Pat Boone and James Mason.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, from like 1950 something.
Right. Pat Boone was, I think that was his heyday back then.
He was a very popular singer back then.
Yeah.
What did I do to my microphone here?
Again.
No, I'll fix it. I got it.
No. You're gonna have to call the tech in now.
It makes
again.
noise. Okay, hey, we're close to taking a break, so we're going to do that right now. One more segment coming up. Stay with us. A lot of people talking about the eclipse out there, or the eclipse. And
So it's
Dar-
actually happening right now.
right.
Huh?
And Dana just sent
How
a
exciting.
picture. I told her to go outside.
Yeah?
It's hard to tell. It just seems kind of fuzzy. So anyway, we'll take a break. Back after these messages. One more segment coming up here on Garden America. All righty, having a good time. We are back. It is our final segment on this this Saturday morning. But again, you've recorded the show. You're listening at a different time. It doesn't matter. You can always listen and watch Garden America somewhere on this great planet of ours, Tiger.
You know, talking of this eclipse, and I love history, and I love like civilizations falling and growing and changes, and it would have been freaky without the knowledge. I mean, and we still
They
don't.
thought it
We
was
were
the
just
end
talking
of the
about
world.
we still just talked about how we don't have a lot of knowledge of our Earth, you know, of our world, of our solar system. So to see an eclipse must have freaked people
course.
out.
It was
right?
the end of the world. It was like,
Like,
this is it. We're done.
yeah.
You know, I don't recall an eclipse here locally where during the day where it actually went dark for 5 minutes. There's
Yeah.
partial eclipse. There's,
Yeah, it's,
you know,
we're in
or
an
it's-
area that
it's too
isn't
far
real.
north.
Yeah,
You'll see a little
Yeah.
bit. So
exactly.
go ahead, John. Chime in on this discussion.
Well, I used to be fascinated with eclipses, but no more.
You're not?
No.
Yeah,
I'm over it.
Yeah,
Not since the day he looked at it directly.
But then think about people that, okay, so, you know, we talked about Alaska having daylight hours of more than 24 hours at a time. And so the people there were just like, this is normal. This is what happens. This is what we deal with. And then, you know, us being where we're located, you know, we have these 12-hour shifts of daylight and sunlight. And for the longest time, nobody kind of knew any different because we kept in our own areas, right? There was less travel.
Right.
But now, then travel came about. So it's like, oh, there's different things that happen in different places.
Right,
You
different
kind of
parts
put it
of the
together.
world.
But then, like fast travel, trains and planes. So, you know how crazy that is that communication, that connection between those two different worlds became so obvious, because it's weird that, you know, you can fly from here to Alaska in a day and you could be witnessing this weird
Exactly.
phenomenon. You know, and meanwhile back home it's still normal 12-hour
He
days.
took your Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun. Does that sound familiar? Those words?
Is that like the Rolling Stones or
No. But it's
the
a song.
Beatles? Oh,
It's a song.
It's a song?
And then everyone tried to figure out, well, who is this person that she's referring to who took his Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun?
It's a
Carly
she.
Simon, You're So Vain. And supposedly it was
Mick Jagger.
Warren Beatty. Mick Jagger actually sang background vocals on that song.
Oh, did he? Yeah, Warren Beatty.
Anyways,
Yeah.
early 70s song. But yeah, people that, let's fly to Alaska to see the eclipse, or let's,
Yeah.
whatever.
By the way, Kevin signed off.
Yeah, he's going to go mushroom hunting,
He's
right?
going. He said that up in Idaho, it's mushroom hunting time.
Nice. Do they just grow at the bottom of trees, on the side of trees there?
Oh, I don't know.
No?
Depends on. He's looking for chanterelles, but you know, a lot of mushrooms just grow in the ground.
Wow.
They have to be really distinctive
Yeah.
because so many mushrooms look alike.
Imagine the first people that, can you eat it? I don't know, Bill, you try it. No, you go first. You eat it. Take a little bit. You okay? The difference between a mushroom and a toadstool.
What is the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Can't eat toadstools.
Right, but,
They're both fungi.
right? But what's the, you don't know.
What is the difference? You know?
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know the difference. I mean,
Is there a difference?
I would just say one's edible, one's not.
Why can't you eat a toadstool?
They're poisonous.
yeah, but
Oh, like those toadstools? The
Like-
ones that make you see things?
no, not those. No, the one. Just,
You're not talking.
what is?
I just went to.
I know. Never mind.
Fairies are.
Fairies?
Fairies live under toadstools, don't they?
Yes, they
Like
do.
where the Smurfs lived?
Yeah.
That's time to go to bed.
I don't know. I would have to. I don't know the difference.
Yeah.
I've never been much for mycology, but I
Or
did.
even your ecology,
I
right?
did see.
Their ecology.
You tell us the last segment.
I've told you No, this is completely has nothing to do with what
Okay,
we're
most of the
talking
show's been
about.
about what we usually talk about. It's okay.
But when my son was little, he would always get sayings wrong and stuff like that. And he went to visit his cousin Matthew in Detroit when he was probably about maybe 5. So we went over there, and he had a great time with them. And then we left, and he said that he wanted to go play with me again.
Matthew.
Math me?
Yeah.
Matthew, not
So
Matthew.
it's Matthew.
Not Matthew.
Oh,
Math me, Matthew.
yeah.
Okay, couple of minutes to go.
It's fall, so it's nice that it is cooling off. Turn down irrigation systems.
We were talking about things to plant.
Oh, yeah.
I would think you can plant any vegetable seeds now, right?
Yep.
Like peas. I noticed sweet peas are coming up, the ones that were wild.
Really?
Yeah, and October is really the best month in Southern California to plant sweet peas because they're not going to grow a lot over the winter, but they develop root systems. And so if you want to have a really great bloom in the spring, before the weather gets too hot, you need to plant the sweet peas now.
Boy, it's all about the root systems with you, isn't it?
Go to Mission Hills Nursery. I bet they have a good selection of sweet peas.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of fun varieties. You know what's coming up randomly in my yard? You remember I planted dahlias a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Coming up right now.
Now?
One of them. Weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, didn't you plant poppies?
Yep. Those are done now.
Or Isaac planted those. I think he
Those
went
are
out-
done now, but I don't have any poppies up and around.
You know, we had
Asclepius all over the place.
Some
Yeah.
late rains the last month, right?
Yeah.
Some unusual rains.
Beautiful.
And I don't know if
Love
that's
it.
the reason, but I've got California poppies coming up.
You do?
Yeah, like
Yeah, I don't
plants
have
that
any.
are,
Wow.
what, maybe a foot tall now?
Really?
Yeah. Last year they didn't bloom until really late in the winter, I thought.
No.
So I don't know why they're up now.
That's it. Roll the credits.
You know, I've got a great story to tell you.
Okay, save it for next week.
What?
I said roll the credits. We're done.
Oh.
This is it.
It's 3 or 4 minutes and I can
Yeah.
finish it. All right.
Anyway, hey, thank you for tuning in. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. Enjoy the eclipse if that's in your part of the country right now. Just be careful. We're going to do it again next week. Back in studio, I'm Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox. Back again next week, 8 o'clock on the West Coast, 11 a.m. Eastern Time Zone, and everywhere else in between, Mountain Central. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe, and we'll do it again next week right here on Garden America. Take care.